He's been called many things: a villain, a genius, a train wreck, a mastermind. For over a decade, Ronnie Radke has carried with him one of the most polarizing reputations in rock music. Loved and hated in equal measure, his story reads like a cautionary tale and a miracle at the same time. How can someone who's been cancelled, arrested, dragged through scandals, and written off by critics suddenly find himself at the center of one of the most surprising comebacks in modern rock? That's exactly the story we're about to uncover. If this story's already got you curious, hit like and subscribe, because what you're about to hear will challenge the way you see Ronnie Radke and his band falling in reverse. We begin in shadows, in a place where controversy wasn't just an accident but almost a lifestyle. Ronnie Radke was never the kind of frontman to stand quietly in the background. His voice, his image, his decisions, every step he took seemed to ignite a firestorm both on stage and off. And for many, it wasn't just about the music. It was about the chaos surrounding him, the arrests, the fights, the endless stream of headlines that threatened to bury his career before it could truly take off. But here's the twist: the very chaos that should have destroyed him somehow became the foundation of his survival. Every fall turned into a reason to climb higher, every scandal another chapter in a story that refused to end. And while most bands crumble under the weight of one bad headline, falling in reverse seemed to feed off the storm. Still, no one could have predicted what would come next. Picture this: a man branded by many as toxic, problematic, a figure doomed to fade away. And yet, against all odds, he transforms himself into the face of one of the most talked about bands of the past few years. How did Ronnie Radke go from rock's most despised figure to the mastermind behind viral singles, massive tours, and a fanbase louder than ever? Was it redemption, manipulation, or pure resilience? In this journey, we'll trace the fragile line between self-destruction and rebirth. We'll pull back the curtain on the scandals, the betrayals, the controversies, and the pain that built the mythology of Ronnie Radke. But more importantly, we'll reveal the turning point, the moment no one saw coming, when falling in reverse didn't just survive, they rose again. This is not just a story about a band. It's a story about a man who refused to stay buried, no matter how deep the world tried to push him down. Welcome to the untold truth of Ronnie Radke's most unexpected comeback.
But in my head, I just literally was like, I will never stop. There's no way. I'm not stopping.
To understand how falling in reverse reached this point of unlikely resurgence, we need to rewind the tape, back to the mid-2000s when Ronnie Radke's story was just beginning to unfold. Before the chaos, before the viral headlines, before the divided fan base, Ronnie was a young kid from Las Vegas chasing the same dream as countless others: to make music loud enough to drown out his demons. Radke's first shot at the spotlight came with the post-hardcore band Escape the Fate. In those early years, the band climbed quickly, riding the wave of MySpace-fueled popularity and the explosive energy of the emo and scene era. Radke's charisma was undeniable. He wasn't just another singer in the crowd. He had a presence, a dangerous edge that made him impossible to ignore. But that edge, the same spark that attracted fans, was also the fuse to a ticking time bomb. As Escape the Fate grew, so did the shadows around Ronnie. Trouble followed him almost like a shadow of his own making. Fights, reckless choices, and a lifestyle spiraling out of control soon caught up with him. By 2006, Ronnie was no longer just a rising star, he was a headline. His involvement in a violent altercation that led to legal consequences marked the beginning of a downfall that seemed irreversible. In 2008, Radke was sentenced to prison, effectively exiling him from the band he helped create. For most musicians, that would have been the end. The industry is merciless, and few get second chances after burning bridges so early. Yet somehow this was just the beginning of Ronnie's saga. While behind bars, he began to imagine his return, not with Escape the Fate, but with a new band that would carry the weight of his name, his vision, and his demons. That band would become Falling in Reverse. When Radke finally walked out of prison in 2010, he didn't emerge quietly. Instead, he came out swinging, determined to reclaim the spotlight and prove every doubter wrong. Falling in Reverse debuted in 2011 with The Drug in Me Is You, an album dripping with energy, defiance, and a strange kind of self-awareness. It wasn't just music, it was a statement. Ronnie was telling the world, "I'm still here. You can't erase me." But as history would show, Ronnie Radke's biggest challenge wasn't creating a comeback. It was surviving the storms he continued to summon. The band's rise was fueled not only by its music but also by the controversies that clung to Ronnie like a second skin. The context of those early years, from Escape the Fate to Prison to Falling in Reverse, laid the foundation for everything that would come later. Every high, every collapse, every unexpected twist in the band's journey can be traced back to this chaotic origin story. This was not just the birth of a band. It was the birth of a narrative, one where music, mayhem, and reputation would be locked in constant battle. And for Ronnie Radke, the war had only just begun. When The Drug in Me Is You dropped in 2011, it wasn't just another debut album, it was a declaration of war. Falling in Reverse arrived with a sound that felt both nostalgic and defiant, fusing post-hardcore energy with pop-punk hooks and Ronnie Radke's venomous charisma. The record entered the Billboard 200 at number 19, an almost unthinkable achievement for a band led by someone fresh out of prison and surrounded by controversy. But that was the paradox. The chaos didn't scare people away, it drew them in. Fans couldn't look away. Ronnie wasn't trying to hide his past, he weaponized it. The lyrics were drenched in self-reference, anger, and irony, almost mocking the idea of failure. For a generation of listeners who were growing up in the shadow of the emo and scene explosion, Falling in Reverse provided a soundtrack that was both familiar and dangerous. They weren't just playing songs, they were playing out Ronnie's redemption arc in real time. Songs like the title track, The Drug in Me Is You, and I'm Not a Vampire became instant anthems. The music videos only amplified the band's presence. Colorful, chaotic, theatrical, and provocative. Ronnie wasn't a frontman anymore, he was a character larger than life, blending arrogance and vulnerability in a way that felt magnetic. Every smirk, every lyric, every headline reminded the audience that this was no ordinary comeback. The live shows added another layer. Falling in Reverse didn't just perform, they attacked the stage. Ronnie's unpredictability, his ability to switch between aggression and charm in seconds, made every concert feel like a gamble. Would it be brilliance or disaster? No one knew, and that's exactly why people showed up. But behind the bright lights of their sudden rise, shadows were already forming again. Ronnie's past never stopped haunting him, and his volatile personality continued to spark conflict both inside and outside the band. The higher Falling in Reverse climbed, the more fragile their foundation became. Success was theirs, but stability? That was another story entirely. Still, in those early years, the energy was undeniable. Falling in Reverse had transformed from an impossible dream into one of the most polarizing forces in modern rock. And Ronnie Radke had proven something crucial. He wasn't just surviving the chaos, he was thriving on it. Enjoying it? Then hit the like button and subscribe to catch the next stories. The descent into despair is never a sudden collapse. It is a slow corrosion of the soul, a gradual bleeding of meaning that turns vibrant colors into fading shades of gray. At first, it feels like a passing shadow, something temporary, almost harmless. But as days turn to nights, and nights into endless cycles of silence, the shadow thickens, wrapping itself around the heart like a suffocating shroud. You don't even notice the moment when laughter becomes foreign, when music loses its resonance, when the voice inside begins to whisper that nothing will ever change. That whisper soon grows into a scream, drowning out every attempt to resist. Despair is not just sadness, it is the conviction that hope is an illusion, that every prayer falls into an empty void. It poisons memory, twisting even moments of joy into reminders of how far you've fallen. It convinces you that you are unworthy of love, unworthy of redemption, unworthy of life itself. It isolates not by building walls, but by convincing you that no one would dare cross the wasteland you have become. And yet, paradoxically, it feeds on longing, the desperate ache to be seen, to be heard, to be saved. There is a cruel beauty in despair, a false intimacy that makes you believe it understands you more than any friend, lover, or God ever could. It whispers that surrender is easier than the endless battle. It tempts you to see death not as an enemy, but as the only faithful companion who will never abandon you. That is the darkest lie it tells, that oblivion is mercy. And many, blinded by the weight of despair, choose to believe it. But even in the thickest fog, a faint light remains. Despair can never fully extinguish the imprint of eternity that God has carved into every soul. No matter how heavy the silence, no matter how endless the night, a spark survives, a trembling reminder that we are not abandoned. It may be buried under layers of guilt, anger, and exhaustion, but it is there, waiting to be fanned into flame. The fall into despair is terrifying because it convinces you there is no way back. Yet the very fact that despair feels unbearable is itself proof that the soul longs for something more. A corpse feels no despair, only the living wrestle with such shadows. And in that struggle, even when broken, there is hidden dignity. The weight of despair may bend you, but it cannot erase the truth that you were made for more than ruin. Every story has a moment when the walls of reality crumble, when the weight of choices, mistakes, and consequences becomes unbearable. For Ronnie Radke and Falling in Reverse, that moment arrived not as a single event, but as a perfect storm of personal failures, public backlash, and the relentless pressure of expectation. It was the point where success no longer felt like triumph. It felt like a trap, a cage built from the very victories that had once elevated him. The albums were charting, the fans were loyal, and yet every headline felt like a nail in the coffin. Every accusation, rumor, and scandal was magnified through social media, spreading faster than the music itself. Backstage conflicts, management struggles, and internal tension in the band grew like a hidden wildfire. Trust fractured. Decisions became desperate. And for the first time, the image of invincibility that Ronnie had cultivated for years began to crack. It wasn't just external forces, it was the internal storm that truly threatened to break him. Years of mistakes, legal trouble, and personal demons converged in moments of isolation and doubt. Ronnie, the frontman who once thrived on chaos, realized that chaos could also consume him. Each fight, each public meltdown, each viral controversy felt like proof that redemption might be impossible. The crowd cheered, but the voice inside whispered, "This is the end. No one will save you now." And yet, paradoxically, it was within this pressure that the seed of transformation began to grow. The breaking point often reveals what was hidden, the capacity to adapt, to learn, and to rise from the ruins. It forces choices that no calm day would ever demand. For Falling in Reverse, the breaking point was not a final collapse. It was a crucible. The band had to confront the reality of their own instability and make decisions that would define whether they would survive or fade into irrelevance. In retrospect, the chaos, the mistakes, the public scorn, all of it became a catalyst. What seemed like a path to ruin was actually the forge in which resilience was born. The turning point was not a triumphant concert or a viral video. It was the moment of silent reckoning, when the band faced the abyss and refused to fall. That refusal, small but resolute, would lay the groundwork for the surprising resurgence to come. From the outside, it may have looked like despair and disaster. But within, it was the beginning of a rebirth. A painful, raw, and unavoidable rebirth that no one outside could fully witness, yet it set the stage for everything that followed. Falling in Reverse was no longer just a band in turmoil, they were a story waiting to be rewritten. The aftermath of a breaking point is rarely visible at first. For Falling in Reverse, the consequences weren't just headlines, they were wounds etched into the very identity of the band. Relationships fractured, trust was shattered, and the glow of success began to fade under the harsh light of reality. Touring schedules became battlegrounds. Recording sessions were tense and unpredictable. Every decision, once seemingly trivial, now carried the weight of survival or failure. Fans watched, some loyal, some skeptical, as the cracks grew deeper. Social media amplified every misstep, turning minor conflicts into viral spectacles. Rumors of internal fights, lineup changes, and burnout circulated like wildfire. The band's image became a double-edged sword. The charisma that had attracted millions now exposed their vulnerabilities to a relentless audience. Ronnie Radke himself bore the heaviest scars. Behind the theatrics and bravado, he wrestled with guilt, regret, and the pressure to live up to both his own expectations and those of a fanbase unwilling to forget the past. The personal toll was profound. Nights blurred into mornings filled with anxiety and self-doubt. The pressure of public scrutiny, combined with the relentless pace of touring and recording, created fractures that no fame could mend. Bandmates faced burnout, and some considered leaving, unsure if the music was worth the emotional cost. Even the most loyal followers could sense the tension. The performances carried a raw energy, but beneath it lay exhaustion, frustration, and unspoken conflict. Yet, scars are not only reminders of pain, they are markers of resilience. The trials forced the band to confront their weaknesses and reevaluate what truly mattered. They had survived the brink, and while nothing could erase the past, each hardship became a lesson. The public controversies, the near collapses, the personal struggles, all of it shaped the band's identity. Falling in Reverse was no longer just a name on an album cover, it was a living testament to endurance, creativity forged in fire, and the messy, complicated process of survival in the modern music industry. The consequences were harsh, but they also created depth. Songs became more introspective, lyrics more honest, and performances carried the weight of lived experience. The scars, both seen and unseen, became part of the narrative that would eventually allow the band to stage their surprising comeback. The question was no longer if they could rise again, it was how. After the storms of controversy, legal battles, and personal turmoil, Falling in Reverse faced a crossroads: continue to fracture under pressure or reinvent themselves entirely. What followed was not a simple return, it was a carefully orchestrated resurrection, built on lessons learned from every misstep and scar the band had endured. The reconstruction was both strategic and deeply personal, reflecting a newfound maturity that came not from ease, but from surviving the chaos. Musically, the band began experimenting. They blended genres, incorporating electronic elements, trap influences, and orchestral layers into their post-hardcore foundation. The shift was risky. Longtime fans questioned the direction, critics were skeptical, and the industry itself often resists reinvention. Yet Ronnie Radke's vision was clear. Falling in Reverse would not merely return, they would dominate on their own terms. Every lyric became sharper, every melody more calculated, every performance infused with renewed intensity. It was as if the band had absorbed their past chaos and transformed it into precision-driven creativity. Behind the scenes, revelations unfolded. Bandmates spoke candidly about the challenges they had overcome together, revealing tensions that had once threatened to dismantle them completely. Ronnie, often vilified in the media, began to show layers previously hidden. Moments of vulnerability, accountability, and a relentless work ethic that even detractors could not deny. Collaborations with producers, innovative recording techniques, and viral social media strategies all converged to create a narrative that the public could not ignore. The story of a band redeemed became as compelling as the music itself. The return was punctuated by singles that exploded online, videos that dominated streaming platforms, and tours that sold out in record time. But beyond the metrics, it was the emotional resonance that defined the comeback. Fans old and new connected with the authenticity of a band that had stumbled, suffered, and ultimately refused to be broken. Each concert, each release, each viral moment reinforced a simple truth: Falling in Reverse had rewritten the rules of recovery in the modern music world. And yet, perhaps the most unexpected revelation was the power of narrative itself. The controversies that once threatened to end their career now amplified their story, making every triumph feel larger, every setback more meaningful, every lyric more poignant. The band had learned the hard way that survival is not about avoiding failure. It's about embracing it, learning from it, and turning it into fuel for a comeback no one could have predicted. Falling in Reverse had transformed chaos into opportunity, scandal into strategy, and despair into art. The resurrection was complete, not by erasing the past but by confronting it, understanding it, and using it to propel themselves forward. In that transformation lies the ultimate revelation. Redemption is rarely clean or simple, but when it comes, it is undeniably powerful. The story of Falling in Reverse is not simply a tale of music, fame, or controversy. It is a story about resilience, about the human capacity to rise from the ashes of failure, scandal, and personal demons. Ronnie Radke's journey, marked by mistakes, conflicts, and public scrutiny, reflects a deeper truth: that even in the darkest chapters of life, transformation is possible when courage, creativity, and persistence collide. As the band now stands at the forefront of modern rock, it is impossible to ignore the scars that shaped them. Each lyric, each riff, each explosive performance carries the weight of battles fought both on stage and behind closed doors. The chaos that once threatened to destroy them has become a defining element of their identity, a testament to the idea that adversity, when faced with honesty and determination, can be a powerful catalyst for growth. Fans and critics alike have witnessed not just a comeback, but a redefinition of what it means to survive in the music industry. Falling in Reverse has shown that success is not a straight line and that reputation, no matter how tarnished, can be reshaped through relentless effort and creative risk. The band's story challenges the notion of failure as final. It reminds us that redemption is messy, often uncomfortable, but ultimately transformative. Beyond the spectacle of viral videos and sold-out shows lies an emotional resonance that few bands achieve: the connection forged through struggle. Listeners hear more than music. They hear survival, they hear the raw echoes of humanity in all its flawed beauty. In every chorus and every verse, there is a reflection of struggle and triumph. A reminder that the path to reinvention is paved with vulnerability as much as ambition. The narrative of Falling in Reverse also invites reflection on our own lives. How do we face our mistakes, our chaos, our moments of despair? How do we rebuild when the world seems to have already written us off? The band's journey is a mirror, revealing that resilience is not about perfection but about persistence, and that the most profound growth often emerges from the moments we least understand at the time. In the end, the story of Falling in Reverse is a testament to survival, creativity, and transformation. It is proof that even amidst controversy, even after seemingly insurmountable failures, it is possible to rise, redefine oneself, and inspire others in the process. Their journey is far from over, but the comeback, the lesson, and the emotional resonance are undeniable.